Hi everybody, this is Lou Gaddis, the Faculty Director of the Residential and Executive MBA programs, and I'm also your finance professor in the core program. What I want to do today is just make sure that you are comfortable with Excel for the start of the program, the start of my course. And so I'm just going to go through a real simple or basic exercise to launch Excel, put in some text, some numbers, do some calculations. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to launch Excel from my desktop. So this is a Microsoft-based system. It's not a Mac. All right, I'm now in the home section of Excel, and I'm going to click on a blank worksheet. So now I have a blank worksheet. So I got my columns, A, B, C, D, and my rows, and have my menus up here. If I look at the menus, I have the File menu. That's where you can do the saving and printing. I'm going to hit Escape. Got the Home menu, which has possibilities to paste, cut, copy. We got a lot of stuff here related to if it's the text is going to be bold or italic or underlined. Change the colors of text or cells there. And you can see there's left and right justify. This is about how data's this area where you can click on a dollar sign to convert your data to a dollar or your number to a dollar or a percent. Increase or decrease decimal places, and so on. If I go to insert, you can see this is a place where I can insert. Mostly I use this for inserting charts, but I can also insert shapes or comments here. Draw, you're generally not going to do that. Sometimes I'll do that during lectures. Got the page layout menu. I don't use that except for when I'm writing to print. The formula menu, I generally don't use this except under formula where it says calculation options. Always make sure it's set to automatic under calculating options. Otherwise, you're not going to get updated numbers every time you change a value. And then there's data. Generally in this area, we're going to use the what if analysis, where under a what if it has goal seek and data table. We'll be using that later in my courses. Also under data, it has sorting. If you're going to sort data, sometimes I'll do that. And also data, the last thing to the right here is solver. So at some point in my courses, we'll use the solver function within this data area. So that's pretty much all I use in Excel. So I'm going to go back to the home menu at the top, second from the top from the left. And what we're going to do is just set up a real kind of basic income statement and make some calculations. So I'm going to zoom out a little bit or zoom into Excel to make this a little bit bigger. So how I do that with my computer is I'm going to hold my control button down, and I'm going to move my trackball up, and that's just going to make things a little bit bigger. So now I only see, say 11 rows and 5 or 6 columns on my screen. And at the top, I'll just type income statement. In A1, I'm going to type income statement. And then I'm going to put in some line items. The first one, I'm going to put in A3, as I'm going to put in the word revenue. A4, I'll put total cost. I'll just put cost. Then I'm going to calculate something called earnings before tax. So in A5, I'll just put profit before tax. And then I'll put tax in A6, and I'll have the last one called profit after tax. Okay, so I've just listed there revenue, costs, profit before tax, tax, and profit after tax. So I'm going to make the column A a little wider, so I'm going to slide it over by grabbing the edge of column A, so my data now fits all in column A. Notice that nothing's bleeding over into column B. Now in B2, I'm going to type in 2019, and in C2, I'm going to type in 2020. And I'll just go ahead and put some revenue numbers in for 2019. In B3, I'm going to put in $1,000 of revenue. So what I can do is I can either type in let's just type in $1,000 in B3. Costs, let's go ahead and put $400. And now my profit before tax in B5 is going to be simply B3 minus B4. Now notice I didn't type B3 and B4. I was able to just click on the cell B3 and it typed it for me. Or you can just type in equals B3 minus B4. Let's assume some taxes. So let's assume that taxes are 25%. So I'm going to put in a formula here that says 0.25. I'm in B6 equals 0.25, 25%, times the profit before tax, which is in B5. So 0.25 times B5, and times is that character above the 8. And then I have my profit after tax will be profit before tax, B5, minus minus taxes in B6. So it looks like this organization has profit after taxes of $450. Now I'm going to select from B3 through B7, and then I'll go to my home menu, and I'm going to click on the dollar sign, and that's going to convert everything to dollars. So it just looks a little bit better. I see $1,000, $400, $600, $150, and $450. My 5 values I've just calculated or input. Now 2020, what I'm going to do for 2020, I'm going to copy everything I just typed in 2019. So I'm going to copy from B3 through B7. I'll select it all, hit Control C, and then I'm going to go to C3 and Control V to paste. And I have to make that column a little wider to see it. So now I have the same exact values in C3 through C7, but let's just change a few. Let's change the revenue to be equal to 1,100 and not 1,000. And let's make the cost 450 in cell C4 and not 400. Now the rest is going to be calculated for me because, right, profit is going to be, again, just revenue minus cost. Taxes are going to be 25% of profit before tax, and profit after tax is just going to be the profit minus the taxes. So you can see in 2020 we have profit after taxes of $487.50, taxes of $162.50, and profit before tax of $650. Let's calculate one ratio. So in A9, I'm going to type in A9 profit margin. And all I'm going to do is in cell B9, I'm just going to put B7, profit after tax, divided by B3, revenue. So it looks like the profit is 45% of the revenue, and I changed the format just to make that a percentage when I'm looking at it by clicking on that 45% in B9 and clicking on the home menu and clicking on percentage. I'm going to then copy what's in B9 and copy that to C9, and you can see that the profit margin's fallen from 45% to 44.32%. And let's go ahead and calculate a change. So I'm going to type in change in column D in row 2. I'm going to center that. I'm going to go to my home menu and center that. Actually, let me center everything in row 2 by selecting the 3 things I've entered and center them all. And the change in D3 of revenue is the revenue in 2020, 1,100, minus the revenue in 2019. So that is C3 minus B3. I'll copy that formula down, and now I see my change. And let's do one other thing. So that's just a dollar change. What's in column E? I'm going to put in E3. I'm going to put in text and just say percent change. So what was the percentage change from 2019 to 2020? So column D is the dollar change. So I'm going to put in a formula in E3 equals, I'm going to put in the 2020's revenue minus 2019's revenue divided by 2019's revenue. So I'm going to say equals, open bracket, B3, so C3 minus B3, close the bracket, and divide it by B3. So again, that is the 2020 revenue minus 2019 all over 2019. I'm going to change that to a percentage, and you can see 10% change. I'll then copy that formula down for the next 4 spaces by either just hitting Control C, then copying down to the next four spaces, or I'll show you another way to copy. So it's just pretend we just typed in that one formula in E3. I can just drag down the bottom right hand corner of the cell, has a little bit of a box, and you can drag it down and copy that down for 4 more rows. And what we see, there was a 10% increase in revenues, a 13% increase in costs. Let me add a couple decimal places to read these. Actually, the 10% increase in revenue, 12.5% increase in costs, which is an 8.33% increase in profits, 8.33% increase in taxes, and an 8.33% increase in profit after tax. So this gives you some basic. We want to do something just to show how you use functions. Let's just go to A10 and say average revenue. I'm just going to type that in, average revenue. And then in B10, I'm going to put in a function, an Excel built-in function. It's an average function. So I'm going to type in equals average, A-V-E-R-A-G-E, open bracket. And I want to take the average of the 2 years' revenues. So I'm going to do equals average, open bracket. Then I'm going to select B3 through C3. So that's B3 colon C3. Close that bracket, and you can see the average revenue was $1,050. All right, so last thing I'll do since we're in here is you could change some formats. So everything right now is white, so there's no backgrounds or changing in formats. What I could do is I could select those 2 change columns. What is that? D3 through D7 and E3 through E7. I can select that cell range and go Home, Cell Style, Calculation. So now it just kind of shows you that those are calculations. I can do the same thing for the profit margin and the average. I can select those 3 calculations. Go to Cell Styles, Calculations. And I could do, anytime I type in a number in Excel, I can make that an input. So I can take the revenue and costs in 2019 and 2020, select those 4 numbers, Cell Styles, Input. And it looks like the rest of them are calculations. So I'll just select profit before tax, tax, and profit after tax in both years and make those calculations. And the last thing I'll do is one other format I'll use. What if the thing you really care about is profit after tax in B7 and C7? I'll select both those cells, go to Cell Style, and click on Output. So you can see that now visually really stands out that what you're calculating here is profit after tax in 2019 and 2020. Your inputs were revenue and costs. Your calculations were profit and taxes and profit after taxes. So I just want to give you a little primer in Excel just to give you an idea of how to enter data, make calculations, change formats, change column widths, and we did an Excel function of average. So hopefully that helps you and makes you feel a little more comfortable about our first day of class.